Clutter doesn't shout, it lingers quietly, like a song you can't turn off. It sneaks in through memories, gifts, keepsakes, and the fear of letting go. One day, you look around and realize your home isn't as open as it once felt. The walls seem closer, the air heavier, the calm harder to reach. But clutter isn't just physical, it's emotional. It carries guilt, nostalgia, and hesitation. What if the weight on your heart is simply the echo of things you no longer need? What if peace has been waiting, hidden beneath stacks of forgotten objects and maybe someday boxes? Every item once had meaning, but not every item still serves your joy. The moment you decide to start, even with a single drawer, your energy shifts, you reclaim the rhythm of your life. Because clarity isn't about what you lose, it's about what you gain. Space to breathe, to dream, to live freely again. Before we move forward, don't just hit that new hype button. You can hype 3 videos a week, and every hype helps senior voices like yours rise higher. Liora is 72, a retired nurse living in a small coastal town in North Carolina where the sound of the ocean drifts through her windows like an old lullaby. Her life has always been about caring for others, the patients whose hands she held in their final moments, the neighbors she checked on after hurricanes, the grandchildren whose scraped knees she patched with a gentle smile. But now, in the quiet rhythm of retirement, Liora finds herself surrounded by the echoes of everything she's kept. Her late husband's books still rest on the shelves where he left them, their spines worn soft from his fingers. Her hallway walls are lined with photos of graduations, holidays, and hospital wards long gone. In her bedroom closet hang dresses she hasn't worn in 20 years, yet can't bear to give away. Every object in her home tells a story, and she knows every story by heart. What began as cherished memories has slowly become an emotional maze. The house feels heavier, not from dust or clutter, but from meaning. Each item holds her attention hostage, each pile carries a whisper from a life already lived. She doesn't see junk, she sees love, loyalty, and the effort of decades. But lately, she's begun to realize that the weight of keeping everything is quietly stealing her peace. Her home, once her sanctuary, now feels like a museum she must maintain instead of a space she can rest in. When she sits in her living room, surrounded by the objects of her life, she feels a tug, not of regret, but of readiness. Liora decides it's time for a new kind of care, not for patients, but for herself. She doesn't start with the intention of cleaning, she starts with curiosity. What do I really need to carry forward? She whispers one morning, standing before a shelf of old photographs. She begins small, one drawer, one corner, one choice at a time. She discovers that letting go isn't about forgetting, it's about honoring what remains. With every small release, she feels her home breathe again, lighter, softer, freer. And for the first time in years, Liora feels something shift inside her, the beginning of her own healing. Step 1. The permission slip moment. The morning sun streamed softly through Liora's lace curtains, casting gentle patterns across the worn wooden floor. She sat at her kitchen table, a steaming cup of chamomile tea warming her hands, surrounded by decades of accumulated memories, her late husband's book stacked neatly on the shelf, a drawer overflowing with old letters, photographs, and keepsakes from grandchildren she hadn't seen in months. 4 years, Liora had been the caretaker of others, patients, friends, family, anyone in need. But now, in the quiet of her own home, she realized she had been carrying something far heavier than she ever expected, the invisible weight of all the things she had kept. Each object told a story, yes, but each also held her in place, reminding her of responsibilities, of past joys, of moments she wasn't ready to let go of. She felt suffocated, though she had always believed that holding onto everything was a sign of love and loyalty. On that morning, Liora made a decision that would change the way she approached her life and her home. She took a piece of paper from her journal and, with careful, deliberate handwriting, wrote, "I give myself permission to release what no longer serves peace." 6 simple words, yet they carried a power she hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she wasn't giving instructions to others or following societal expectations, she was granting herself the grace she had long withheld. This small act became a symbolic key to unlock her freedom, a declaration that her worth was not tied to the objects around her. Seniors, she realized, often cling to things out of duty, out of memory, out of fear that letting go somehow diminishes their lives. But true release, she discovered, begins with permission. She began with one small drawer. Lifting each item, she paused and asked herself, does keeping this bring me joy, or does it weigh me down? A note from a grateful patient brought a smile and stayed. An old cardigan that reminded her of loss brought a sigh, and she carefully folded it, thanked it for its years of service, and placed it in a donation box. Each act of letting go became a ritual of gratitude, a gentle conversation with her past rather than a confrontation. The house itself seemed to respond. Light flowed more freely, the air felt lighter, and even the walls seemed to exhale alongside her. The permission slip also became a daily practice. She taped it to her refrigerator, reading it each morning as she sipped her tea. It reminded her that decluttering wasn't about erasing memories or abandoning love, it was about choosing which memories to carry in a way that nourished her present life. Every object she released became a statement. I honor this memory, but I honor myself even more. The emotional transformation was profound. What had once felt like an obligation or a burden became a path to liberation. By the end of the week, Liora had not only cleared space in her home but also in her heart. She realized that decluttering with permission allowed her to reclaim her energy, her focus, and her peace. Her home no longer felt like a museum of the past but a living sanctuary for the present. Each day brought small victories, a lighter drawer, a clearer countertop, a more serene mind. She was learning that letting go is not forgetting, and releasing is not regret. It is a conscious choice to step into the life she still wants to live. In granting herself permission, Liora reclaimed herself entirely, proving that the first step to transformation is always the courage to say, I am allowed to move forward. Step 2. The story sort. After granting herself permission to let go, Liora realized that the next step wasn't about deciding what to keep or toss, it was about listening. Every object in her home held a story, a memory, a fragment of her life that had shaped who she was. Instead of approaching decluttering as a task, she approached it as a conversation with the past. She held up a folded apron from her nursing days and asked softly, does this story still belong in my present life? That simple question changed everything. It shifted her perspective from judgment to reflection, from obligation to gentle acknowledgement. The process became what Liora began to call the story sort. She would pick up each item, one by one, and recount the memory it carried. A teacup gifted by a friend who had since passed reminded her of laughter shared on rainy afternoons. A worn-out notebook from her first night shift told the story of fear, learning, and courage. She didn't discard the memories, she honored them. If the memory still brought warmth, gratitude, or inspiration, the item stayed. If it brought heaviness, regret, or longing for something that no longer served her, she thanked it and let it go. Each release felt like turning a page rather than closing a chapter. For seniors, this approach resonates deeply. Years of experience, caregiving, and accumulated life events mean that letting go can feel like forgetting, like erasing the proof of a life well lived. But Liora discovered that releasing objects didn't erase the stories, they existed in her mind, her heart, and the people she had touched. She realized that her home could honor her past without holding her hostage to it. By turning decluttering into storytelling, she reframed the process as an act of remembrance and acceptance rather than judgment and loss. She began organizing her keepsakes into categories: joyful reminders, lessons learned, milestones, and gifts of love. Every category allowed her to see patterns in her life, to recognize the moments that had shaped her values and her resilience. This method gave her clarity. The clutter that once felt chaotic began to make sense. Each item was no longer just an object, it was a symbol, a memory, a lesson. She started to notice how some items, though meaningful in the past, no longer resonated with who she was today. Letting them go felt lighter than she had expected. Liora also discovered the power of storytelling for connection. She invited a close friend over and shared the memories behind a few items she intended to release. Laughing over old anecdotes, she realized that memories lived not in things, but in the shared experiences and emotions themselves. Letting go of objects did not sever the connection, it celebrated it. This revelation brought her immense peace. By the end of the week, her home was already feeling different. Surfaces were clearer, rooms brighter, and the emotional weight that had pressed on her chest began to lift. Liora's story wasn't just decluttering, it was a form of therapy, a meditation, a gentle dialogue with herself and her past. Each item she touched was an opportunity to reflect, to accept, and to make a conscious choice about what belonged in her present life. Through this practice, she learned that memories could be honored without being physically hoarded, that peace could coexist with remembrance, and that letting go was, paradoxically, the deepest way to hold onto what truly mattered. Step 3. The half-hour harmony reset. After completing the story sort, Liora realized that decluttering didn't have to be a monumental task completed in one overwhelming session. Instead, she discovered the power of the half-hour harmony reset. Each day, she committed to just 30 minutes, no more, no less, focused entirely on one small area of her home. A drawer in the kitchen, a corner of the living room, the top shelf of a closet. 30 minutes became a rhythm, a gentle heartbeat of progress that transformed her approach from stressful obligation to mindful restoration. She set a simple timer and approached each session with intention. Liora didn't focus on quantity or speed, she focused on balance and calm. She started by taking a deep breath, feeling the sunlight on her skin, and reminding herself that she wasn't cleaning out of guilt, but clearing space for peace. She arranged items thoughtfully, redistributing them so that each object had a place, and each space invited serenity. Even small wins, like neatly stacking her late husband's papers or organizing her teacups, became celebrations of harmony rather than chores. During these half-hour sessions, Liora discovered the meditative quality of small, deliberate actions. The process became rhythmic: lift, sort, place, step back, breathe. Each movement was purposeful. She began to notice how cluttered surfaces affected her energy, how a chaotic countertop made her heart race slightly, while a cleared table gave her a sense of control and clarity. For seniors, this gentle approach resonated deeply. It acknowledged physical limitations, respected mental energy, and offered achievable progress without pressure. 30 minutes was not enough to exhaust her, it was enough to create visible, satisfying results that encouraged continuation. Liora also began to pair these sessions with reflection. While arranging a shelf or tidying a drawer, she allowed her mind to drift to happy memories, to laugh quietly at old stories, or to feel gratitude for the people who had been part of her life. The half-hour harmony reset wasn't just physical, it was emotional. She realized that decluttering in short, focused intervals allowed her to connect with the act itself as a form of mindfulness. Every item placed in its rightful spot or released with care became a step toward inner peace, a way to restore order not only in her home but in her mind and heart. Within weeks, Liora noticed a profound shift. Rooms that once felt heavy now felt open and inviting. Even small corners, once overlooked, began to breathe with space and light. The process created momentum, each half-hour reset inspired the next, and gradually, she was moving through her entire home with ease and confidence. The steady, deliberate pace made progress visible, sustainable, and emotionally fulfilling. She realized that patience was part of the transformation, that slow and thoughtful action often brought more satisfaction than frantic, rushed cleaning. The half-hour harmony reset also taught her the importance of celebrating small victories. No space was too small to matter, no step too minor to acknowledge. Every drawer straightened, every shelf cleared, every countertop freed from unnecessary objects became a quiet triumph. Liora began to see her home not as a collection of things but as a sanctuary for daily life, a place that reflected the calm she cultivated within herself. This approach gave her confidence, joy, and an ongoing sense of accomplishment, proving that even 30 minutes a day can bring balance, clarity, and peace, one small space at a time. Step 4. The Legacy Light Test. As Liora moved deeper into her decluttering journey, she realized that her choices weren't just about her own comfort, they were about the lives of those she loved. Years of caregiving and nurturing had instilled in her a natural desire to protect and ease the burdens of others. But clutter, she understood, didn't just occupy space in her home, it occupied mental and emotional space for her children and grandchildren who would one day inherit it. That realization led her to what she called the Legacy Light Test, a simple, yet transformative question she asked herself about every item she touched: Will this lighten the future for my children? Liora began with her living room, where decades of family memorabilia had slowly crowded every surface. She picked up a stack of old photo albums and asked herself the legacy light question. She realized some of these albums contained duplicates, faded pictures, and notes that were meaningful to her, but not necessary to keep for her children. She carefully curated the ones that held the essence of family history, moments that told stories of courage, love, and joy, and set aside the rest for donation or digitization. The question reframed her actions. What once felt like giving up became a deliberate, loving gesture. Decluttering was no longer a task driven by guilt or obligation, it was an act of compassion. The legacy light test also extended to practical items. Liora's kitchen drawers held utensils she had rarely used but feared letting go of. By applying the test, she asked, "Will keeping this serve my children, or will it add confusion and burden?" The answer guided her decisions. Some items stayed, others were given away to friends, local charities, or directly to her children with explanations of their significance. Each choice became intentional, framed around clarity and care, not waste or regret. Emotionally, the test brought Liora a profound sense of purpose. Decluttering shifted from being about emptiness to being about legacy. She realized that every object she released could become a gift of simplicity and foresight for the next generation. By thoughtfully curating what remained, she was creating a home environment that was lighter, safer, and more manageable for her family in the future. Her children would not inherit unnecessary stress or confusion, they would inherit memories distilled into what truly mattered. Liora found that this step also brought clarity to her own heart. Some items that no longer served her purpose in the present were easier to release when she reframed the decision as a gift to others. Sentimental pieces, clothing, books, and household items were all evaluated through the lens of care. Letting go became less about loss and more about empowerment. Her home started to reflect intention. Spaces felt lighter, organized, and purposeful, each corner a testament to mindfulness and love. By the end of the week, the legacy light test had transformed Liora's approach to decluttering. She moved with compassion and clarity, recognizing that the act of letting go could be simultaneously freeing for her and thoughtful for her children. Every drawer, shelf, and closet that was cleared became a quiet legacy, a demonstration that love could be expressed through action, through space, and through mindful curation. Decluttering was no longer a chore, it was a statement of clarity, compassion, and purpose, proof that even in her 70s, Liora could guide her family toward a lighter, more intentional future while honoring the richness of her own past. Step 5. The One Beautiful Thing Principle. After embracing the legacy light test, Liora noticed how many objects in her home carried overlapping memories. Multiple mugs from the same family gathering, dozens of letters saved from different decades, stacks of photographs that told similar stories. She realized that the abundance of things didn't increase the value of her memories, it diluted them. That's when she discovered what she called the One Beautiful Thing Principle. For each treasured chapter of her life, she would keep a single object that captured the essence of that time. One photograph, one bracelet, one letter, one piece to honor many moments. She started with her nursing years, pulling out awards, pins, and certificates she had carefully stored. Instead of keeping every accolade, she selected one framed pin that symbolized her journey, the joy, and the lessons learned. Holding it in her hands, she felt the satisfaction of honoring the whole period with a single, meaningful item rather than dozens of reminders. Each object she chose became a symbol, a condensed memory that allowed her heart to hold the past without being weighed down by clutter. The process transformed decluttering into an act of celebration. Next, she turned to her family memories. Out of the dozens of photographs from her children's birthdays and graduations, she chose a single, candid photograph that captured laughter, warmth, and love in one frame. Letters and cards that once filled drawers were distilled into a small, elegant keepsake box with just the most cherished notes. Even souvenirs from travels were refined, a small seashell from a memorable beach trip, a tiny handcrafted ornament from a long-ago holiday. Each item now represented entire experiences, encapsulating joy, adventure, and connection without overwhelming her living space. The principle wasn't about minimalism for its own sake, it was about gratitude. Liora found that keeping one beautiful thing for each chapter allowed her to focus on the essence of her memories, rather than the accumulation of objects. Each item she retained felt intentional, honored, and full of meaning. She started noticing the effect on her daily life. Surfaces were clearer, rooms felt more open, and moving through her home became a gentle, peaceful experience. The mental clutter that had once accompanied physical clutter began to dissipate. Liora also discovered that this principle strengthened her emotional resilience. When she glanced at a single treasured object, it sparked a flood of recollections, lessons, and warmth without the chaos of excess. Her home became a living gallery of life's most important moments, each piece a tangible reminder of gratitude, love, and accomplishment. Decluttering had shifted from a chore to a mindful ritual, a way to honor her past while fully embracing her present. For seniors, the one beautiful thing principle is transformative. It teaches that memories don't need to be hoarded to be cherished. Meaning is preserved through intention and reflection. By keeping only what truly represents the richness of each chapter, Liora created a home that was both emotionally satisfying and physically manageable. Every object she held became a symbol of her life's journey, allowing her to move freely, breathe deeply, and cultivate a daily sense of peace, simplicity, and gratitude. Through this approach, she realized that letting go of excess is not loss. It is the ultimate act of honoring the beauty and depth of a well-lived life. Step 6. The Open Space Celebration. After weeks of careful decluttering, Liora's home began to breathe in a way it hadn't for decades. Surfaces that were once stacked with decades of accumulated memories now gleamed with intention. Drawers, closets, and shelves had been thoughtfully curated, each object chosen for its significance, each space cleared of the unnecessary. The transformation was not only physical but emotional. Liora felt lighter, freer, and more present in her own home than she had in years. It was time to embrace this newfound openness fully, and she decided to begin with a celebration, an open space celebration. Liora started small. She moved her dining table to a central spot bathed in sunlight, cleared it of old papers and clutter, and placed a simple vase of fresh flowers in the center. The chairs, once hidden under stacks of magazines and sewing projects, were now inviting and accessible. She made tea, choosing her favorite blend of chamomile and lavender, and laid out delicate porcelain cups she had reserved for special occasions. The room, once a silent archive of years gone by, now invited connection, conversation, and joy. Liora realized that decluttering wasn't just about removing things, it was about creating space for life to flow. She invited a few longtime friends over for a casual morning tea. The moment they stepped in, they paused, smiles spreading across their faces as they noticed the difference. Liora's home felt alive, warm, and welcoming, not crowded or heavy. Conversation flowed easily across the newly cleared surfaces, laughter bounced off the walls without obstruction, and the aroma of tea filled the room with a sense of calm and comfort. Friends complimented the simplicity and serenity of her home, remarking on how peaceful it felt compared to the cluttered, chaotic spaces they often encountered in their own lives. Liora felt a deep sense of pride, not from perfection, but from intentionality, from creating a space that supported her well-being and invited joy. The open space celebration also became a daily practice for Liora. She began noticing the little ways openness affected her mood. Mornings spent reading by a clear window, afternoons hosting quiet conversations with neighbors, evenings of reflection at her decluttered dining table. Each activity was amplified by the absence of excess. The home no longer competed for attention. For seniors, this practice demonstrates the profound impact of intentionally cleared spaces. Physical decluttering translates into emotional liberation, offering room not just for objects, but for relationships, creativity, and personal growth. Liora found that living in open space encouraged spontaneity and presence. She could easily invite grandchildren for impromptu visits, set up small craft projects without searching for room, or enjoy a solitary moment of meditation with no distractions. The room became a symbol of her journey, proof that letting go could lead to renewed energy, clarity, and connection. The open space celebration was both literal and metaphorical, a recognition that space, light, and simplicity could enrich life in ways that objects never could. By embracing her decluttered environment, Liora experienced a sense of renewal that went far beyond aesthetics. Her home was now a living, breathing sanctuary of intention and lightness. She realized that the true reward of decluttering isn't merely order, it's the freedom to live fully, to host joyfully, and to create memories without the weight of excess. Through her open space celebration, Liora proved that even after decades of accumulation, a home could transform into a place of calm, delight, and vibrant life, reflecting both the wisdom and the joy of a life intentionally curated. Step 7. The Ripple of Peace. With her home transformed and her spirit lighter, Liora felt a new energy stirring within her. The act of decluttering had not only cleared her living space but had also cleared the fog that had weighed on her mind and heart for years. She realized that the freedom she had cultivated could be more than a personal gift. It could become a legacy, a ripple that extended outward to touch the lives of others. Inspired, she decided to share her journey with her local senior group, a tight-knit community of peers who had navigated decades of life with resilience, yet often struggled with the same challenges of clutter, memory, and letting go. At the next meeting, Liora stood before her friends, her hands gently resting on the one object she had brought as a symbol of her transformation, a simple wooden box that contained a few treasured letters, a photograph, and a small keepsake from her late husband. She spoke softly but with conviction, recounting the steps she had taken, the permission slip moment, the story sort, the half-hour harmony reset, the legacy light test, the one beautiful thing principle, and the open space celebration. But rather than presenting these as rules or techniques, she framed them as invitations. Invitations to reflect, to release, to reclaim life in ways that honored the past without being trapped by it. Her friends listened intently, some nodding, others with tears welling in their eyes. Liora explained how decluttering had allowed her to create space for joy, connection, and meaningful moments in daily life. She shared stories of hosting tea mornings, rediscovering cherished memories without the burden of excess, and feeling a profound sense of peace that extended far beyond her home. She emphasized that decluttering was not about perfection or minimalism, it was about intentionality, gratitude, and the courage to prioritize emotional well-being. The response was immediate and heartfelt. Several members confessed they had longed to simplify their own spaces but felt unsure where to start, overwhelmed by decades of accumulated possessions. Liora offered guidance, encouragement, and reassurance, emphasizing small, manageable steps that respected both physical limitations and emotional attachments. By reframing decluttering as an act of self-compassion and a gift to others, she inspired them to see the process not as loss, but as liberation and contribution. In the following weeks, Liora observed a beautiful ripple effect. Friends began sharing their own successes, cleared drawers, meaningful keepsakes curated, and new routines of daily harmony. The conversation expanded beyond the senior group. Children called to express gratitude for lighter, more intentional homes, neighbors noticed the serene energy emanating from once crowded spaces, and the stories circulated, encouraging others to embark on their own journeys. Liora realized that the peace she had created was multiplied when shared, that her personal transformation had become a catalyst for collective change. Through this experience, Liora understood that decluttering was far more than organizing objects, it was a vehicle for legacy, connection, and contribution. Each act of release carried the potential to inspire others, to ease the burdens of loved ones, and to model a life lived intentionally. By sharing her journey, she not only celebrated her own growth but also empowered others to reclaim their own spaces, their own memories, and ultimately, their own peace. The ripple of calm, joy, and freedom spread outward, proving that a life thoughtfully curated can touch hearts, foster community, and leave a lasting legacy of clarity, love, and purpose. Liora's journey comes full circle, a testament to the power of intentional living and mindful decluttering. Once weighed down by decades of accumulated objects, obligations, and memories that crowded her home and her heart, she now moves through her space with a sense of clarity and lightness that she hadn't felt in years. The house that once felt like a museum of responsibilities and yesterdays now breathes with sunlight, laughter, and possibility. What has transformed is not just her home, it is her spirit. The chairs that once hid under piles of paper now invite conversation. The shelves that held mountains of keepsakes now display carefully curated treasures that truly matter, each one sparking gratitude rather than guilt. Liora no longer measures her life by what she owns, but by what she feels, energy, calm, and the quiet joy of spaces that support her life rather than constrain it. Her days are now filled with moments of connection, creativity, and peace. She hosts friends for tea mornings, engages with her senior group to share the lessons she's learned, and enjoys quiet reflection in spaces free from distraction. Each decluttered drawer, cleared countertop, and curated shelf serves as a reminder that letting go is not loss, it is liberation. The freedom she created externally mirrors the freedom she feels internally, showing viewers that the act of creating space in one's home is inseparable from creating space in one's mind and heart. Liora's story demonstrates that by consciously releasing what no longer serves us, we open ourselves to more laughter, connection, and calm in our lives. Before you go, here's how you can hype this message and support the movement towards simpler, happier living for seniors everywhere. Step 1. On your YouTube app, scroll down and swipe left on the comment carousel until you see the hype button. Step 2. Tap hype. Step 3. Choose how many points you want to give. Step 4. Confirm, and you've just boosted a senior story to the top. Remember, you get 3 free hypes every week, and every single one helps more seniors discover this message of clarity and freedom. While you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story that inspires peace, purpose, and joy in your space. Together, we can create a world where aging feels lighter, freer, and beautifully uncluttered, a community of seniors supporting seniors, sharing wisdom, and celebrating life without unnecessary weight. Your small action today can inspire another senior to reclaim space, embrace simplicity, and live intentionally. Let's continue this journey together and keep spreading the ripple of clarity, one home and one heart at a time.